Hello. Unfortunately, the recording for this is a little bit scuffed, and you're going to see jumping straight into the game. But here we're looking at a hand that was kept a little bit risky in terms of the land situation, but Thoughtsea's coming down. Sort of expected to take away the Guardian Idol as I was playing the game, but Tails End makes an awful lot of sense as it is counterspell to Esika, and that's really what the opponent is trying to do. Now, Rusko can hit the board next turn, but the most important thing here is to have the interaction for Esika. As soon as Esika drops on the battlefield, it is going to be very tough to win. In this position, I was also expecting counter magic, so I declined the option to cast Rusko, instead casting Seek New Knowledge, trying to find more sort of interaction, and don't find it, instead finding two sort of cards that are really good once Rusko hits the field, being Displace a Kitten and the Blink effect, the Blur. Displace a Kitten really gives you many clocks once Rusko hits the battlefield and can just win the game if I can get that off. Unfortunately here, the opponent, no fear, goes straight for the commander, having gone for the hand hate, seen the hand and picked the card that counters it, and has said, okay, my opponent can't do anything about Esika entering, and now it doesn't matter how many counter spells I have, how much removal I have, because every threat in Esika is a Planeswalker, very hard to deal with. Looking at the hand here, honestly, this doesn't actually matter as much, as we'll see later in the game. As suddenly, yes, we see just big Planeswalkers start to hit the battlefield. Can't interact with them. They can still interact with me. Very big trouble. Whelming Wave is a dead card. Fatal Push is a dead card. Displace a Kitten is going to be very hard to enter the battlefield. Yes, it is a good one. Brawl's Expertise is kind of okay, but it doesn't hit the relevant threats, being the Esika, being the Planeswalkers. And very quickly here, we're going to see just the opponent get unassailable value, especially to play Displace a Kitten down on the battlefield and have it do things. I also need to have the commander out, which is also going to be extremely difficult, knowing that there's two Planeswalkers across the board, sitting there looking at their minus abilities and saying, well, I can just remove your commander when I want to on each, and every turn getting a new Planeswalker. Nicol Bolas really the final nail in the coffin there. Extremely strong Planeswalker and basically a bunch of dead cards in hand. No amount of Displace a Kitten is going to get me out of this situation, especially when they can just remove the commander in a myriad of different options there. So without wasting any time, I go sort of into the next game. Into game 2. Now there is the play advantage in looking at the hand. There is a Thoughtseize, there is Midnight Clock, very strong interactive pieces and ramp pieces. Baleful Mastery is one of the only ways I can hit Planeswalkers, so I can survive even if a Planeswalker does hit the battlefield, and hopefully we can get value underway with this hand before any of that happens. Now looking at the hand, Lightning Bolt can get a Rusko, but that's not important. Rusko is one we sort of want to replay anyway. They're a little bit stuck on mana if we notice. They only have a white-black and a white-blue dual land, so a lot of the hand is rather uncastable. So if we assume they get a land of any color, they can cast Celestus and then have access to all the mana. At the moment they only have access to Negate, which isn't actually that critical here, as we want to play Rusko, which is not a non-creature. And on turn 2, if they play Search for Azcanta as we're on the play, we get to play our 3-drop when they've tapped out for their 2-drop. Because it's unlikely that they're going to hold Negate up when Search for Azcanta can help them dig to lands that they need to cast. So for that reason, taking Celestus felt very good. Get rid of the chances of drawing out, basically decrease the chances that my opponent can draw out of this spot, and hopefully give myself enough time to start setting up. We've got the clock down on their tap out turn. They now have Negate up, but we're looking to play Rusko this turn, so just simply dropping a land here and playing Rusko is going to be very good. We can do it with the safety of seeing that, hey, Esika isn't coming out until the turn after next, so it isn't important to hold up Disdainful Stroke until next turn, so it's the perfect opportunity to cast it immediately. Even so, we still hold up the stroke because of the clock, just very useful. And here we're just sitting on the stroke for Esika. That is number one important thing here. Opponent has found the land. In fact, it is the perfect land as well, being green-red. Now they've found all their colors. Of course, they still need to find another green or red source, but they can do that with Into the North here. They still have Negate up, but they can't play Esika and hold up a Negate in the same turn. So, as I'm hovering over it, I'm going, I think I'm pretty happy here. Now, I know there is Negate in hand. Unfortunately, the hand doesn't do too much at the moment. I can bait the Negate out, and so that I have access to Baleful Mastery if they do drop a problematic Planeswalker at some point, just to get rid of the card from their hand. Honestly, a little bit rushed. I could have definitely gone for a turn where the opponent is tapping out for a Seeker. I cast Disdainful Stroke during that part, and then I go for the Tutor, the Grim Tutor. When they're tapped out and there's no negate open, then I can get what I want, get some nice interaction for the opponent, some sort of counterspell or extra turn, something like that. Instead, I'm running it out into the counterspell, which in retrospect was a little bit of a mistake. I'm still pretty happy though, because if they go for the Esika here, I do have the counterspell. Unfortunately, the opponent has drawn the perfect card in Duress, and for the second time this match, we're going to see a resolved Esika. Very problematic card. Unlikely in this matchup that it resolves, because playing blue-black control, you would expect the deck to have ample interaction up, but the hand hate coming extremely clutch for the commander, or for the opponent rather. And here I'm just trying to get the clock up, try and find value, trying to draw my way ahead of Esika, which is going to be pulling off some strong Planeswalkers from the top, trying to tick up the clock, so as soon as that ticks up to 12, the new hand happens, counting out the mana, checking, okay, this goes to 10, the clock will go to 10, I can tap it once more to go to 11, and then on my turn, it should go up to 12, and I do have Baleful Mastery in hand, so if they do find some powerful walker, I can play the Baleful Mastery for 4, which is what I have left open. So, Nicol Bolas is an extremely powerful card. I would be worried, however, there is the revealed Baleful Mastery, which does save me a turn, but that's the difficulty here, is it saves a turn. The benefit of casting this spell as opposed to ticking the clock as well is that casting the spell with Rusko ticks the clock automatically. Agonizing Remorse hits, and really just forcing my hand here, saying, hey, you better cast it now or I'm going to take it away from you. So going ahead, getting rid of the Planeswalker, and I'm really just looking to cast 9 or so spells, in which case after attack from Rusko, that will be enough, or 8 spells I suppose from this point. After the 3 damage attack from Rusko, that will be lethal. So opponent now choosing to set us back from the aggressive plan by getting rid of Rusko. Now usually this would be beneficial to me because I just want to get a bunch of clocks on the field, but at this point the opponent's already set up. So if they continue to put me back into setup mode, and they've already got the setup that they want, then they're going to be further and further ahead. So usually giving myself more and more setup is a bad thing, but in this position they just want to take over the board with Planeswalkers and they want to set us back so that they have time to do so. Otherwise I'd be draining them out and they would have no life to work with left. So here I'm trying to cast all the spells I can. Essence Flux also gets me another clock, more mana. Very nice. It's effectively a free spell to cast. Gets me closer to the clock number 2 activation, which will happen in a sec. Looking at the hand, just in case there's something nasty. Well, the Skyclave Relic isn't that relevant. More mana when they're just casting everything for free off the top is fine anyway. They did steal Paradox Engine from the deck, which is a little unfortunate. It stops us from going infinite, so we have no combo, but we do have hope, and that hope is to drain the opponent out of the game. So taking the Day of Judgment out means we can keep Rusko potentially alive for a turn longer, depending on what the Planeswalker is that comes out the top. Unfortunately, we couldn't hold the Flicker effect because we'd lose the hand on upkeep anyway, so we're sort of forced to cast it here, and we lose the blink effect, so we do have to set up again with Rusko. Otherwise, that would be really quite hopeful, as I would have a lot of open mana to try and draw into just random spells with Rusko on the field and try and continue draining the opponent. Yeah, unfortunately, it's getting more and more difficult. I need Rusko to stick around and cast spells at the same time. Now, the clock on 5 is actually getting quite close to ticking up, and I'm effectively tapping out every single time I cast Rusko. This was a mistake, but I'm really just trying to find some sort of interaction mana rock. I'm not even sure what I was trying to find here. So, another mistake. I should have gone for Rusko, even if it's into the Chandra. I really just need to continue either getting the clocks up and try and force the Rusko to stick on the field. I really have to fight with everything I have just to get Rusko to stick for a turn, because if I can do that, I can win. Instead, I'm choosing to try and draw into more interaction. Unfortunately, definitely the wrong decision, as the resolved threats are all coming in uncounterable, so interaction is rather unhelpful. Solve the equation isn't even that exciting anymore, as again, the things in that this deck really wants to do is be reactive to when spells are cast, and the bridge is just cheating them onto the battlefield, so I'm sort of looking quite a little frustrated at the at the commander there, before deciding to go Mind Stone and destroy the Chandra, which honestly wasn't even a big threat to begin with. I got rid of it because I wanted to play Rusko without there being a Planeswalker on the field that could kill it, but in this way, I decrease my chances of winning because I'm letting 2 Planeswalkers come out now. The one this turn, which, okay, would you look at that, already removes Rusko from the field. But also, if I play Rusko next turn, and then they flip another Planeswalker, hey, that could also very likely deal with Rusko as well. So, a bit of a misplay on my part. But it was an unfortunate position to begin with. Still, not excusable for that kind of mistake, but Titan of Industry coming down, hitting the clock. Now it's really hard to cast Rusko, because if I play it once, then the Rusko will get removed by Garruk. I have less clocks to work with because the Titan of Industry is going to destroy Mana Rock. Interestingly enough, it doesn't choose to get rid of the clock, but I kind of like that decision from the opponent, because the cards in my hand don't really matter. I'm going to permanently have like 7 cards in my hand. It's more the mana I have access to, because again, the only way I really win from this position is to be able to cast Rusko and then rattle off a whole bunch of spells. Opponent sort of with the perfect again, finding the counterspell for Rusko. It's going to be costing extra, and I'm not getting the effectively discount from itself because it's countered. I don't get the clock in play. They have at least one Planeswalker that can remove it on the field already, so I'm already looking at a Rusko that taps for more mana than I currently have out on the battlefield. And that's before I start casting anything. They have a board presence at this point. They're attacking for 11, which is effectively 2 turns. I'm dead with Garruk activation, getting some more wolves on the field. I'm really just spinning the wheels here. Get rid of Liliana, cool, I guess. Doesn't really do too much, unfortunately. I can't really kill a wolf because the ultimate of the Garruk will be too fast anyway. But I also need to somehow blank the Prismatic Bridge from hitting anything relevant, which is rather impossible considering everything in the deck is meant to be a relevant hit, and the Coma hitting down that card is basically unbeatable from this point on. Creates so much value, stops me from doing anything, can tap me out of more mana where I want to cast the commander. So yeah, just a very easy concede and quite unlikely result, I think. The matchup's not really usually in favor of the Esika deck. Against traditional control, the deck really struggles. But that's the way the cards were dealt, that's the way the cards were drawn, and that's the way the cards were played. So there goes the match.